Shana Tova, one and all. We are learning Tehilim of Majesty. This is part 3. They're all standalone. So we did chapter 27, David Hashem Ori. We did chapter 24, David Mizmor Lashem Haaretz Umlo'ah. Today we're going to do what is referred to in one of my Sfarim as the Himnon Lahamlachat HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the anthem that accompanies the coronation of Hashem. So we'll look at that. It's chapter 47 in Sefer Tehilim. If you have a Tehilim at home, it's Psalms 47. If you don't, you probably should buy one in honor of the new year. But either way, fear not, I'm going to put it up on the screen and we will learn it together. And just a couple of us here learning in person, everyone else on the line. Let's understand it a little bit. First of all, to recognize that according to one early source, the Masechet Sofrim, which is part of our canon of the Talmud. It's part of what's called the Masechtot Ktanot. Masechet Sofrim believes that actually there is a special Shir Shel Yom, a song of the day for Rosh Hashanah, and that song would be what we're looking at in chapter 47. So that's what we have here. Okay, so V'Rosh Hashanah Omrim Mizmor Kol Ha'amim Tiku Chaf. That's interesting. They think that's according to Masechet Sofrim, that's the song of the day. And then Yom Kippur has its own song. Interesting. Barchi Nafshi, Mimamakim Kraticha. There's one for Sukkot. They didn't start giving you that, but just consider what it means that the song of the day is, according to Masechet Sofrim, is what we're looking at now, chapter 47. Where is chapter 47 in the Machzor? Remember where it is in the Machzor? Right? Chapter 47 is right before we blow shofar. In fact, we recite it 7 times in a row. And we tell everybody, okay, we're getting ready to blow the shofar. Everybody take it your Machzor, read 7 times. Why 7 times? Anyone want to hazard a guess? What's the significance of number 7? 7 days of the week. That's pretty obvious. But the 7th day is the day of Shabbat, which is the day in which we crown Hashem. More on that coming up over the period of a certain Yemei Tshuva. I don't want to give too much away. I'm working on something. The 7th month is therefore the time of coronation. And therefore, 7 times we announce, like for each day of the week, you could say 7, we announce Kadosh Baruch Hu 7 times. Something else though, something a little more mystical. Masechet Chagiga tells us there are 7 levels of heaven, of Shamayim. So what are these 7 levels? They all have names. We're not going to start looking up the Gemara now because of time considerations, but the idea that these 7 times that we're reciting it are related perhaps to the idea that we are speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu who is in the highest heights and in all of the layers of Shamayim. We're reaching out to him. Came the Aruch HaShulchan in the 19th century. He said, I just don't like this minhag. I want to cancel this minhag of saying the chapter 7 times. Why? Because he said there were people who would be in shul who were so obsessive about trying to get in this nice minhag to read 7 times the chapter 47 of Tehilim, that while the shofar is going, they're still davening. But you're not allowed to speak during the shofar. You have to pay attention. So that's the second source in the sheet. V'aminig lomar mizmor kol ha'amim tiku kaf sheva pa'amim kodem hatkiyot v'yesh me'ameh ha'aretz shekshelo yishlimu zayin pa'amim omrim be'eit hatkiyot. In the middle of the time, they're still going. V'tzarich lodiya lahem she'aser la'asot kemichavim lishmo hatkiyot v'lo lomar shum davar be'eit hatkiyot. Right? So you just realize, ki halam natzeach enu medina. It's not a halacha that you have to say the lam natzeach. The halacha is to hear the shofar. The answer, Amen, prohibited bracha is to listen in, yeah? There are places where they don't say it because they're worried. They saw it too many times. People just messed it up. There were too many people that during no, you have to listen. Understand? Okay. So that's just a little bit on the placement of it in our tradition, our liturgy. Now, we don't say it as the Shir Shel Yom, but we say it before Tkiyat Shofar. And we'll see now, of course, there are going to be some important reasons why. The way I chose to structure the shir is to go through it line by line. But of course, before we even do that, we need a sort of a skira, an overview of the chapter. So I'm looking at the Koren translation, which is in my Koren Tanakh, page 749. Here in person, that's what we have. But at home, you might have another edition with a different translation. Just if you scan your eye, either in the Hebrew or in the English, for more comfortable, you realize that as soon as you get to verse 7, chapter Pasuk Zayin and Chet, it's mentioning music a lot. Zamru Lakim Zameru, Zamru Lakinu Zameru, Kimel Karatz Lakim Zamru Maskil. The word Zamer is like of Mizmor, a song, music is right here on display. You don't have to go that far though. Pasuk Bet, there's a kol rina, a sound of joy that's emanating. We're hearing it, right? Come out, it's emitted. So that's also related. Yeah, the sound of it. Let's delve into the chapter a little bit and try to understand some of its themes, beginning with what some would want to maybe erroneously lop off as just the authorship and not to read it. Sometimes I've been in public places. I think I mentioned this last time, pet peeve of mine. They want to say chapter 23 of Tehilim. So they don't want to start Mizmor LeDavid Hashem Ro'ilu Achsar. They start Hashem Ro'ilu Achsar. We'll say the 23rd Psalm now. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. No, Mizmor LeDavid is part of the chapter. It's not an add-on. It's crucial. We saw last time to understand Mizmor LeDavid versus David Mizmor. Yeah. So this is no less crucial. Lamnatseach livnei korach mizmor. Right? But the conductor, or the Quran has the chief musician, to the Bnei Korach, means written by the Bnei Korach, a mizmor. Now, who are the Bnei Korach? They're the Bnei Korach. That's who they are. It's telling you who they are. Remember, we learned previously, I've said it already a couple times in these shiurim, not all of Sefer Tehillim written by David HaMelech. The Gemara Masachet Baba Batra Daf Yadal Medbet to the top of Tet Vav Amud Aleph tells us there were other people who participated. And in fact, that Gemara says the Bnei Korach lists them as 3 of the 10 who helped, so to speak, who contributed, whose words were included in Sefer Tehillim. So Lamatzech Bnei Korach Mizmor, that's who wrote it. Now, is that significant, or it's like, yeah, they wrote some things. So look, if you're looking at a full Tanakh, that's why you can't use a matzah for this purpose. Go back to chapter 42, and you'll find that Perek Mem Bet is Lamatzech Maskil Livnei Korach. Mem Gimel, no authorship mentioned. Mem Dalid, Lamatzech Livnei Korach Maskil. Mem Hey, Lamatzech Al Shoshanim Livnei Korach Maskil Shir Didot. Mem Vav, Lamatzech Livnei Korach Al Alamot Shir. Mem Zayin, our Perek, Lamatzech Livnei Korach Mizmor. Mem Chet, our song of the day for Monday, Shir Mizmor Livnei Korach. Lamatzech Livnei Korach Mizmor again in Mem Tet. Right? So a whole slew of them. And then Nun is already Asaf. The discussion was Asaf one of the Bnei Korach or not? Ayin Sham Tosfot, Mem Zayin, and Baba Batra, Tet Vav, Mid Aleph, not for now. But it's important to know, okay, the authorship matters. Who are the Bnei Korach? So when you open up Sefer Bamidbar, you flip back, you remember there's a very small little pasuk in Parshat Pinchas giving us the census and the names of different families. As part of that, Perek Chavav, pasuk, not Yud Aleph, made a mistake. No, I didn't make a mistake. Chavav Yud Aleph, Uvnei Korach lo metu. After it tells us what happened to Korach and his family, not the sons of Korach, they seem to have done tshuva. Rashi, Uvnei Korach lo metu, I'm back on the sheet now. They started being with the council of Korach. Uvisha'at hamachloket hiru tshuva b'libam. At the time of when the conflict came, they revisited their original position and they did tshuva. Rashi writes something else after, and lefichach nidbatzel hem makom gavoa b'gehen v'yashvu sham. Therefore, a place was set for them, like a fortress, nitbatzer, like an ir mivtsar, a stronghold was made for them in Gehenna, and they were there. The Torah says Uvnei Korach lo metu. What Rashi is trying to reconcile is the fact that in Parshat Korach, it makes it sound, one reading, like everybody from Korach's family was killed. So what do you mean there were exceptions? Everyone except for these people? No, they too, but they had a high place in Gehenna. Now that presents another problem, of course, which is, okay, so Uvnei Korach lo metu, so who are these people who are the Bnei Korach are writing songs? They wrote them before they died? That's not, that we don't find that anywhere. So one of the commentaries, and many commentaries written on Rashi, one of the prominent one is Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, who quotes a medrash. He actually engages Rashi. He tries to defend Rashi, to explain Rashi. Rare that he would challenge Rashi or say, I don't understand Rashi myself. But he says there's a medrash that says V'nei Korach Lametu means alu al pnei haaretz ubal eretz yisrael v'hayu neviim. Rather, they arose, they went to Eretz Yisrael, everybody else, and they were neviim. Does that mean they got out of being in that place where they had been swallowed up? Does it mean they never actually went down? Alu al pnei haaretz, while it was swallowing them up, they got out. Is that what it means? Not clear. But the proof, says the Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, is clearly that there's Shmuel and his sons. They're the Mishorim. They're the Korchim. Right? That's how they're referred to. They're the singers. Right? In the Torah also, Mishpachah Korchi, it's mentioned. If not for Rashi's comment about Gehenim, so I would have said that this medrash is correct. So it seems to leave it with a question mark. I didn't give you the whole Mizrahi. I'm not even reading the whole thing now. How exactly to reconcile?
Rabbi,
yeah, Helen, go ahead. Please.
Could I contest this? We have several places. Shivim Nefesh went to Mitzrayim, and many places where we see a group, and it stated their number and who was in it, but that's not the whole story.
Good.
The true story is,
yes.
So what I would like to do, with all my love for Rashi, unpack Miva Miho Holchim as they're being presented as Korach and his gang.
Well
How
said,
can
for
we
sure.
see in that thing that they didn't have to go to Gehenna?
Right.
Something is telling us that the whole group is not what it appears to be.
Yeah. So Rashi, again, other Mefarshim didn't agree with Rashi. Rabbi Mizrahi is quoting a medrash that goes in a different direction. And you're right. We've seen this many times in Tanakh, that when it refers to a group, and it's like it's everyone, it doesn't literally have to mean to the last person. And your example is apt with the 70 that went down to Egypt, the chief 70 souls that went. It doesn't mention the wives of the tribes. So why aren't they mentioned? They're not in a covenantal role, that symbolic number of 70. But how could they have not been there? The tribes all have children, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of examples of this. We find that at certain times, various people wiped out Korach. Wiped out, not Korach, Amalek, Lahavdil. Wiped out Amalek. Wiped out Amalek, but there's still Amalek in the world? Did you wipe them out or you didn't wipe them out? No one's left from Amalek, except that there are people left from Amalek. Find them in later stories. So, and this does happen. You're quite right. It's in Nach in several places. I'm just trying to explain why Rashi had to somehow, he didn't make it up, by the way, the Midrashim that go in this direction, the Gemaras that go in this direction. They're all trying to reconcile the fact that the Torah itself testifies they didn't die, and yet when you open up Parshat Korach, it sure makes it sound like everybody goes down. So the other ways to reconcile it, maybe it's not all of the family of Korach, it means Korach's party, right? And it mentions Vatiftach haaretz et pi'av v'tivla otam ve'et batem ve'et kol ha'adam asher likorach ve'et kol ha'rechush. So on the face of it, it sounds like all of the people, bar none.
Yeah.
It could be all the people who were with Korach, excepting his children, who did not get swallowed up. Why? Because last minute they changed their mind. Okay, can I move on, Rabbeinu B'chai?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Rabbeinu B'chai has another thing. He also quotes the Gemara that Rashi had quoted. They have a place in Gehenna, right? And he says the Makam where they were swallowed is a place of Mishpat, and that's called Gehenna. Or it's literally Gehenna, that the mouth of Gehenna, which is somewhere found in Eretz Yisrael, came close to where they were. Why do you have to say that? Because the Korach story didn't happen in Eretz Yisrael, it happened in the desert. Yeah, okay. But the Rabbeinu B'chai points out, because it says so. We know that that's true. Again, I have this tradition, I have that tradition. Even Ezra, this is on the pasuk as well. Vehem anikraim korchim. Livnei korach means more. Yeah. Daf al hadaf. Excuse me. Daf al hadaf. which is like an anthology drawing from a lot of different not secondary, but for different achronim. So this comes from the Sefer, from the Pardes Yosef Chadash and Parshat Pinchas. He quotes this Rabbi Leah Mizrahi, and he quotes that there's a medrash that's quoted by the Rabbi Leah Mizrahi that they didn't die, that they went to Eretz Yisrael, they were olem with everybody else. And the Divrei David, which to my recollection is actually the Taz, the Turei Zahav, on Shulchan Aruch. This is his commentary on the Torah. He quoted it as from a Medrash Rabbah. We don't have this in a Medrash Rabbah. So back to that source, I put it a little bit in blue. The Medrash that says that, we actually don't have that Medrash except from sources like Rabbi Mizrahi, who still lived before the printing press, essentially, to my recollection. The Taz already, there was a printing press, but our printed editions don't seem to have this Medrash. There are lost Midrashim out there, but if they're quoted by a reliable source, we'll generally say, okay, so that must be it. Anyway, he also tries to reconcile it, and he says, oh, the Makor, the source for this, So he quotes here, Rabbeinu Bechaye from Shmot. The Bnei Korach were from the 48 Nevi'im that the Jewish people had. They were considered prophets. And his source is Seder Olam. And in the Gra, next page of the Masachet Megillah, he says the same thing as well, i.e., these people made it. And this is what the Ibn Ezra means here when he says Shmuel and his sons. Look carefully there. That's who it's talking about. It's interesting, right? Interesting. So that's just to consider the authorship. I have more to say on that. I'll leave it for now for Rosh Hashanah time. We'll talk about it more. Just think about what that means. Now, gathering together of hands, the second pasuk. Kol ha'amim tiku chaf. This means one of two things. All of the nations clapped hands or joined hands. Tkiyat kaf is a handshake. Malbim tells us generally, this chapter is about the future. Al 8, ha'atid, ha'mekuveh, what we're hoping for. Shikru kolam malchut Hashem. They're going to come to find Hashem in Zion. You're going to seek Hashem. So it's on the future. Kol ha'amim, bizman hazeh ha'amim b'milchamet midit. Goy begoy, mamlacha malacha. 19th century, the Malbim's writing, but he's telling you what's going on in the chapter of Tehilim, which is way earlier, right? He's saying in our day, up to the 19th century, up to the 21st century, actually, there's constantly wars between different nations for two reasons. Aleph, b'sibat ha'emuna. Shekol ba'al emuna miyuchedet, yilachem v'yirtzil achrich ba'al emuna acheret emunato. Wars, holy wars, in quotation marks. I'm not saying they're actually holy, but right? Wars for religious reasons. Bet, b'sibat ha'misra v'ha memshala. Right? Rulership, dominion. Shekol amro tzel histarer al amim zulato. They want to rule on others. Al pizeh yomar la'atid lava lo yisagor goycher. That's why in the future, nation will not raise up sword against nation. Rakol amim yitku kaf zelazeh. They'll rather join hands. Why? Lasad shalom b'nei, to make peace. Ad olam lashbit ad olam lashbit cherav milchama. They'll destroy war, destroy the sword. Just to remind you, and this doesn't sound like something so resonant for us at our moment in world history, but in the 19th century, militarism is considered by some to be a positive value. Actually, war for the sake of war. It seems maniacal to us. But countries that go to war, number one, galvanize their population toward a common goal which is externally focused, which keeps people away from their domestic problems. It holds out the promise of treasure and glory. It solidifies national solidarity as well, just among, cohesion among the people. And of course, it raises the profile of the king and queen. They look how far and wide their kingdom stretches. Militarism. Why would you want peace? Peace is boring. Peace doesn't bring prosperity. Peace, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Well, it can bring its own prosperity, right? So the fact that we live at a time where there is something that is incredibly flawed called the United Nations, and where the words of Yeshaya Hanavi are emblazoned on the side of the wall outside, and sometimes they make a mockery of it, and sometimes member states, and sometimes the whole United Nations is itself a big joke. But let's realize it could have gone another way. It could have said war is good. So it's something crazy like what? War is peace. I think it's sounding more and more Orwellian as I say it, but there was such a time. There was such a time. It wasn't so long ago. The Malbim lived through it. So he's telling you in the future, our vision, the vision of Klal Yisrael, which is not a vision of Klal Yisrael, the vision of Elokei Yisrael, the vision of our prophets, Niviyah Yisrael, conveying the word of Elokei Yisrael is peace. Right? They're going to get together. Ki az yavdu kulam kel echad v'Hashem yeh melech echad al kulam. And that's what it means. Hari Elokim b'kol rina, with joy. Sheyadarkim l'hariya b'trua v'kol shofar b'eit hamlachat melech hadash. It was their way to blow the shofar when they would crown a new king. More on this on Rosh Hashanah. You better come to shul. If you don't come to our Torah, go to another shul, but go to shul. And you'll be hearing it, and you'll be hearing more about it. No doubt, no doubt. Be a real true gedola. Begin shlo yiu od le'emunot shonot le'echatzu od lekama machanot. There won't be separate groups and separate religion. They believe in beliefs. They believe in God. Look at Malachim Bet, chapter 11. At the time of the hamlacha of one of the kings of Yehuda, at a very, very tumultuous time. Very tumultuous. Let's not even get into how tumultuous. Of course, the pasuk I gave you is incorrect. Oh no, it wasn't incorrect. 11:12. I was in chapter 12. Yeah. Vayotzi ben Hamelech vayiten alav et hanezer v'reidut vayamlichu oto vayimshachuhu vayaku chaf vayomru yichya Hamelech. Applause at the coronation, right, of a child king, by the by, who we'll learn about in quite some time from now. I won't get more into it now, because we will get there in a Malachim Aleph, which will someday be a Malachim Bet Shir, when Yehoash becomes the child king. Okay, we'll get there. So just for consideration, it might mean clapping. It might mean, getting together. Here I have something that did not work out here. I guess this should not really be underlined. Sorry about that. Rashi says, Tiku Chaf, hitarvu yachad zeim zel hari elokim b'kol rina. They got together in order to make a herald to Hashem with a cry of joy, a scream, shout of joy. Ki Hashem elyon nora, melech gadol kol haaretz. So Rabbeinu Bachai just points out the concept. We have it. It's a yesod nafutz in the world of Chassidut. It's a big deal. We say on Rosh Hashanah, when the world was created, as Rabbeinu Bachai quotes, HaMelech HaKadosh v'HaMelech HaMishpat, we change the language in our tefillah. Lefisha yomahu, because this day, hu tchilat ma'asav she'ein melech b'lo am. It's the beginning of God's action, means as works as a king, because there's no king without a nation. Ein melech b'lo am. Yeah. Or as we have it in Adon Olam, we try to say every single day, Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra. You were already the king before anything was created. But le'eit na'asa b'chefzo kol, when Hashem desired and chose to make everything, to create, Azai, at that moment, Melech Shimon Ikra. That's when his name was called king. Yeah. So as I pointed out, I don't know how many times I've said this same line. It's like a trope that goes in my head, but right in Le Petit Prince, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, which is the Little Prince in English, I had to read it in French, being from Montreal. So the little prince discovers in his travels on a certain planet there's a king, and he asks the king, "Where are your people?" And he says, "There are no what people." Right? He's le roi qui n'a pas de sujet. He's the king with no subjects, as we would say many centuries before Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, right, wrote it. Ein melech b'lo am. Malchut requires an am. Ki Hashem elyon nora, melech gadol al kol haaretz. That's what's being declared. That's our chapter, right? In Tehilim that we're reading. Right, we're getting together, we're sounding something for Hashem, and we're declaring He's the Melech Kol Haaretz. That's what it means. Yeah. Return to leadership and land. Pasuk Daled and Hey, envisioning a time in the future. Yad ber amim tachtenu ulumim tachat ragleinu. The nations will be guided under us, under our primacy, supremacy. I don't know what the word is. It's probably too strong language, but they'll be guided, they'll be led, and nations under our feet. Yeah, not for the sake of subjugation as much as guidance. Yivchar lanu et nachalatenu et geon Yaakov asher ahev sela. Right? He'll choose us and choose our portion, our nachla, right? The one who is the geon Yaakov. Or what is the Geon Yaakov? We have to understand what does this actually mean? The Geon Yaakov is the pride of Yaakov, who he loves. He loves Yaakov. What's going on over here? So look with me in the Radak. Right? Radak. Yivchar lanu nachlatenu shahaita mikedem shelanu. The heritage that was originally ours. Ata gamkin bacharata lanu v'hishiva eleha. Meaning Eretz Yisrael. Now also, God will choose it again, and he will return us to it. V'haaretz hazot higod Yaakov v'tifartam. By the way, a little question you could ask me on that first line is, what do you mean return me? Didn't the Bnei Korach live in Eretz Yisrael? So they have an insight that there's going to be an exile? Did someone later on, we know that there are portions of Sefer Tehilim that clearly came later during the time period of the exile. Al Narot Bavel, Sham Yeshavnu Gam Bachinu, Shir Hamalot B'Shu Hashem Hashivatzinu Kecholmim, Bayit Sheni. No, okay. So it doesn't mean so far into Bayit Sheni, but one could make a case that that's as is described in that Gemara I referred to before. There are a bunch of people who contribute, and then it's redacted, right? It's written on Piruch HaKodesh, but okay, so unclear. Baretz Hazot Hi Geon Yaakov V'Tifartam Ki Kavod Hakel Shachan B'Chelik Mimena B'Hu Beit HaMikdash. What's the Geon Yaakov, the pride of Yaakov? Because the honor of Hashem is in that portion of it, which is the Beit HaMikdash. Now, why is it referring to specifically to the pride of Yaakov or the pride of Avram and Yitzchak? Why that? So look at the Malbim. Right? Skip down. Malbim. Right? It's explained. Yivchar Va'er Me'eza Makom Teitze Hanhagat Hamalucha V'Hadat. From where will the direction come? Kingship, law. It's going to come from there. Shizeya Mitzion. Shagam Shicharei Va'ata, even though it's destroyed now. See? So again, like destroyed now. Okay, but remember that when the Bnei Korach live, they're around. Shmuel is in that era as well. Is there a Beit HaMikdash yet? Doesn't exist. Yivchar lanu et nachalatenu. So the Malbim seems to be taking it, that it's destroyed now, but destroyed doesn't mean because it was built and destroyed, but maybe it means that it never was built yet. The problem is, of course, the next word of the Malbim is od yivchar lanu. He will choose it again. Et nachlatenu she'atchalat hashrat shchina sham her al Yaakov b'mare hasulam shira baharahu. Oh, wait a minute. Now he did a zig and a zag. First, we thought the Malbim could maybe be talking about that there was not yet a Beit HaMikdash. Then he said he's going to choose it again. So, that must be that it's after. No. Look carefully at the pasuk. Yivchar lanu nachlatenu, not et Beit Mikdashenu, not et Beit Hashem, but rather Geon Yaakov. Why is that all they could call it? Because the last of the patriarchs who was in Yerushalayim was Yaakov Avinu having a dream of a ladder connecting Shemaim and Aretz. Therefore, it's called the Geon Yaakov. Shesham ra'a gamkein et hamikdash habanui la'atid lavo, Moshe Katvu Chazal. There's going to be Geon Yaakov Asher Ahev, right? And and it goes on to explain why it's Asher Ahev, who's beloved. I don't remember right now. I didn't quote it for you, so I don't remember exactly what he says. But if this chapter of Tehilim, in whole or in part, was written like later and either ascribed to Bnei Korach, or more likely a part was added, or not, or they wrote the whole thing. But if we take behind door number one and door number two, there's a contest going on between Yaakov and his brother to see who's chosen. And just so you know, it Geon Yaakov Asher Ahev Sela. There's a lot of resonance in a world where, according to Chazal, they ascribe the descendants of Esav and Edom with Rome. They connect it. Now here I've strayed into the world of Drush, because am I trying to claim that somehow the contest between Yaakov and Esav about who is chosen because of Rome and Jerusalem is being written about in a Tehilim? Kind of late for that. Tehilim by all accounts, it's redacted by much earlier. It's not still going in the time of Bayit Pasheni, the end of it at that. He said, no, it was written, I'll be Ruach HaKodesh, so they kind of put it in. Maybe. And Gon Yaakov Asher Yivsela, most likely, the pride of Yaakov that is beloved. How do we know it's beloved? Because that's when he had the dream. That's where the ladder was. So that's the place that was going to be chosen in the future. Okay. Again, different ways you could read it. The Malbim himself, he thinks that this is something that is a chapter of Tehillim about the future. Remember, that was the first line. Go back to the top. I underlined it on the screen for those who are on the screen. It's right after a gathering together of hands. It's Husad al Eit Ha'atid Hamakuveh. We're not up to it yet. Why not? Ruach HaKodesh says there's still going to be an exile, and then they'll be bringing it back. All right. And let me suggest one last thing, then we'll move on. Is it possible that people who read it right when the Bnei Korach said it during the time right before Bayit Rishon was built had a different understanding than people did later on in Jewish history? Of course it's possible. Likely, in fact. If you want another example of that, and I won't go down this road beyond just saying this line, but it's just fascinating. According to the Ramban, why is the Tocha repeated again in Parshat Ki Tavo? It appears the first time Parshat Bechukotai, in the second form in Parshat Ki Tavo, and says the Ramban, the first time it's written in the Torah is for the first exile, and the second time for the second exile. That's why there isn't a third Tocha, because there isn't going to be a third exile. When we come back after 2 exiles, that'll be the Yemot HaMashiach. May I ask you, do you think that when Moshe Rabbeinu is handing over the Sefer Torah at the end of his life to Klal Yisrael, they're all thinking, oh my goodness, it's going to be 2 exiles because it says the Tocha twice? Yeah, but that's the Ramban. He says, but there were layers of meaning that even the people in the time when they read it didn't necessarily understand. Okay, so I apply the same thing here. Bnei Korach said it. People said, oh, yeah, we don't have a place yet, but we know that we have in Parshat Vayetze that there was a dream of Yaakov. There's going to be a place. Where's that place? Wasn't chosen yet. Why wasn't it chosen yet? Remember? Because it's going to be Shmuel and David are going to choose it. Remember? Well, Shmuel is going to tell David where it is. Okay. Next, the throne shift we seek beyond words. Just a few minutes left. And this is probably the most crucial pasuk having to do with Kiyat Shofar for our purposes. Not that all of it isn't crucial, but this is the most crucial. Allah Elokim Bitrua, Hashem Bekol Shofar. Hashem will go up with the Trua, and Hashem will go up with the Kol Shofar. Of course, we know Shem Elokim, Shem Havaya. Shem Elokim, we've learned it many times, is one God. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Right? Yom Kippur edition, some pointed out to me, reminded me, Hashem Hu Elokim. It's the point. But there are 2 attributes of Hashem. Amid Hadin and Amid Harachamim. Medrash Tehilim, Rabbi Yehuda bar Nachman, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Amar, Kevin Shakadosh Baruch Hu al Din. Since once Hashem goes to Din, Yosef al Kisei Din, he's sitting on the throne of Din. The Kevin Shah Shofar token, and even since he hears the shofar that we blow, he changes the attribute of justice to the attribute of mercy. Ola Badin, Uma Shofar, Ola Betrua, Hashem Bekol Shofar Barachmin. Right? So there you have it. Ola Elokim in the sound of the Trua, Midat Hadin, but Hashem Bekol Shofar. It changes. Shenamar, Hashem Kel Rachim B'Chanun, as we'll be saying very much. We've already been saying during Slichot, we'll be saying all through the rest of the Seit Tshuva and on the apex day of Yom Kippurim. Rabbi Yikarava, Rabbi Abrei, Rabbi Rav Papi, Rabbi Yeshua, the Sichnim, B'Shem Rabbi Levi, Amar, Kol Yom Hashanah, Yisrael Oskim B'Malachtan. We do our work. Rosh Hashanah, Notlin Shofrotein, V'Tokin Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What do we do? Our work means our service of Hashem, our mitzvahs, etc. We blow our shofar, and what happens? We omed mikisei din lekisei rachamim. He moves chairs. He has different thrones. That's in the 7th month when we blow the shofar. Right? Rashi, Parshat Breshit, Pasuk Aleph, Bara Elokim, when Hashem created the world. V'lo amar bara Hashem with Yud Kei Vav Kei. Shebetchila al machshav librata b'midat hadin. In the beginning, God thought I should really create the world with the attribute of justice. Rash eino olamit kayem. He saw the world was not going to survive. So So he put the attribute of mercy with the attribute of justice, as we learn in the second parak. When Hashem Elokim made the land, the Eretz and the Shamayim, right? And he made both. So the idea that Midah Hadin and Midah Harachamim, right? And therefore, what is the day of Rosh Hashanah? It's the day of creation of humanity, but part of the pattern of creation. It's all encapsulated. Again, everything you're hearing this year, come back on Rosh Hashanah, you'll be hearing it in one form or another from the pulpit. But we're in the workshop together, so that when you come to that chapter, I learned the chapter. Good. But you should be aware, my mind is percolating, as I'm preparing these shiurim. Again, the psukim of music that we saw, we learned it before, psukim of music, saw it inside previously. The notion of the music, and this is the music. What's the music? We play the shofar. Nehemiah chapter 8, which we don't have time to look up now, just for want of time, because the time is escaping. But chapter 8 of Nehemiah, you look it up on your own. It's where the people are Balei Tshuva and Bait Sheni. They hear the sound of the Kriyat HaTorah and they're weeping. And Ezra's telling them, go home, eat good food, eat sweet foods, everything will be okay. Right? Have joy, don't have sadness. And we're also asked in a certain way, but Kol Rina, that's the whole chapter is about Kol Rina and joy and making music. It's not sad music, it's happy music. Right? Ki Melech, again repeating, Ki Melech Kol Aretz Elokim. Zamru Maskil. Right? We have Melech Kol Aretz Elokim. Earlier on in the chapter, we had Ki Hashem Elyon Nora Melech Gadol Al Kol Haaretz. It's coming back around. And finally, fulfilling the mission of Avram Avinu, and that's why he gets a mention at the end. Malach Elokim al Goyim Elokim Yashav Kisei Kodsho. Right? Hashem ruled over nations, right? And here as Midat Elokim, Midat Hadin. Right? He sat on his throne. We get the Midat Harachamim. How's that? We blow the shofar. It's not clear the rest of the nations get that. Malach Elokim al Goyim Elokim Yashav Kisei Kavodo. Kisei Kodsho, excuse me. Yeah. Okay. Nedive Amim, the noblemen, the notables, the dignitaries of the nations, Nasafu, they gathered together. Am Elokei Avraham, the nation of the God of Avram. Ki le'elokim magine eretz me'od na'ala. For unto God are those who are the protectors of earth, the strong people of earth, and God is greatly elevated. Allah elokim b'tshura me'od na'ala by the end. Yalkut Shimon nedive amim Nasafu Elokei Avraham v'lo ke'etzim v'Yakov. Why only have Avram? Elokei Avram shehaya tchila legerim. He brought people back. Remember? He's the one who converted people to his ideals. V'chein hu omer mayafu pamayach ban alim bat nadiv. The description of in Shir Hashirim, how beautiful are your footsteps of your feet, the daughter of the nobleman. Darash Rava mayafu pa'amim shel Yisrael bane alim. How beautiful are the steps of the Jewish people in their shoes when they come to Yerushalayim. Bat Nadiv, Bita Shel Avram Avinu Shnikra Nadiv. Avinu is called the Nadiv. It's called the nobleman. Rashi, Nadive Amim. What does it mean? Shehit Nadvu Atzmam L'Tevach V'Larogo Kedushat Shemo. Amazing. People who are willing to give themselves over to be slaughtered and to die for Kiddush Hashem. The word Ne'asafu here doesn't mean to gather, but to die. Unbelievable, right? Nedive Amin Ne'asafu, like Vayasif El Amav. Am Elokei Avraham, the nation of Avraham. Why is that? Shahi Nediv Lev Harishon Tchila Legerim. Atanur Tchila Kimagin Eretz Heichol Biyada Liot L'Magain Akol Abotchim Bo. Right? Avram Avinu, right? Baruch Ata Hashem Magin Avraham. Hashem protects Avraham, the legacy of Avram, the person of Avraham. For chapter 15 of Sefer Bereshit, Altira Avram, Anochi Magin Lach, right, etc., etc. So, the people who are killed for being willing to give of themselves to Hashem, Lihit Nadev, and Nadiv, not here a nobleman, but Lihit Nadev, to volunteer themselves. That's the nation of Avraham. Avraham was willing to sacrifice himself, right? And he was in Nadiv Lev Harishon, the first of all proselytes. So now it should be known that God will be with those who are the Magine Eretz, right? He will, anyone who trusts in God, Hashem will protect them. Beautiful idea, right? Total different. Radak, back to idea somehow of gathering. Hagedolim asher b'chol am v'am yunasafim im Elokei Avraham. Right? They're going to be the people from every nation. They're going to gather to the nation of the God of Avraham. Why Avraham? Again, not because of conversion, but rather because he was the first one who called out in God's name. And in order to bring people close. They're going to join that. Unto God will the protectors of the earth come. Who are the Magine Eretz? The Gedolim and the Malachim. Right? Kimo ahavu hevu kalon mi giganeha. I didn't magineha. Excuse me. Okay. So again, the magineha means the people protect earth. Meod na'ala, very high up. Bayomahu, on that day, at the end of days, and that's what we're saying at the end. It's a nice way to end this year, right? That's the announcement they make. The day is coming. The end of days is coming. The redemption is coming. The people coming close to Hashem is arriving. And we're signaling it. How? Prefiguring it in our own Hatzhara, our own announcement and our own herald that we sound for Hashem, which God willing, we will be sounding next week. Haba Aleinu L'Tova, wish everyone a k'tiva v'chatima tova la'altu l'chaim tovim u'l'shalom. We will not be able to have a shiur next week. We will resume sometime soon. Look forward to it for this slot, but of course, many shiurim over Yom Tov for those who are in town. For everyone else, I wish you again Shana Tova U'Mituka.